Yes, we can see the screen.
Great. So, Unit 4 we have completed yesterday with this loops. So today we are going to start Unit 5, which is mostly on the data retrieval, like how to read the database table and data retrieval using select tables, internal tables, and work area. Internal tables and work area, we have seen it in one of the class, how to declare it and how to use it. And index also we have seen it. We will see this join tables. View also we have seen it, right? How to join two tables inside the view. Since this is a part of this data retrieval, but since we have already done it, I've just put that. And for all entries and authorization check. Okay. So so these things we have already completed it. Events we will come back. So this part I have just mentioned these events, but we will just have a separate session on the events. But as of now, just wanted to show you that, like, whenever we start any program, first the load of the program is the event. Okay, it so you can just go through this write-ups whatever is there, and it has the same function as the ABAP program type of like one M, F, or S as a constructor has for classes in the ABAP objects. This means there are, so when you try to create a program here, right? So there are few types here. The test underscore n1. Suppose I want to try to create a program here. If you see this, the type, this is what they are mentioning. Include module pool, function, or subroutine pool. So these kind of, so the load of the program is the first event which gets triggered, and initialization is the event which is executed before the selection screen is displayed. For example, when I use this parameters or selection screen, if I have to do any validation on that selection screen, that has to be done inside the initialization event. Okay. Then we have this add selection screen. Similarly, this event will be processed when the selection screen has been processed at the end of the PAI. This comes into picture when we will discuss about the module pool programs. Okay, but I've just mentioned here the theory. We will come back to the practical application when we start this module pool programming and events as well. And startup selection is any time whenever we are writing right now, whatever programs we are writing, right, we can do it in the startup selection. Okay, so here the program starts selecting the values from the tables. So that means, like, if I go here, somewhere we created the structure and the internal table, right? Last time, do you remember what was the program? Hmm, I think I have not saved that program, I guess. No worries. So here. Yeah. So we were writing this program, right? So before this itself, like, since what does it say? That here the program starts selecting values from the tables. So in here, we can just do the start of selection and then write our piece of code. This is where it starts the selecting the values from the tables. Our internal table is here, LT flight info type standard table of this. Wherever you will try to fetch the values or append the values to the internal table, at that time the start of selection will work. End of selection is after all the data has been selected, this event writes the data to the screen. Okay. And there are certain called as interactive events. So those we will see when we will start for this module pool programming. Okay. And some theoretical concepts I have just given here. Just go through it, and we will discuss in this module pool programming when we come to that. So here we will start the Unit 5 SAP ABAP Retrieval. The ABAP 4 programming language, we have two types of SQL. One is the native SQL and another one is the Open SQL. Generally, we go for the Open SQL. Open SQL is it allows us to access the database table which is declared in the ABAP dictionary. ABAP dictionary, what all are declared? Either it is a table or a structure or a view or a table type, data element domain. So whatever is helpful to access the database table through which we are accessing the database table, OpenSQL helps us to do that. Okay, and the native SQL allows us to use the database specific SQL elements in the ABAP program. Okay, that means it will not be using the database tables that are not administrated by ABAP dictionary. Generally, it will be used by that exec and exec statement. Okay, mostly in our SAP ABAP, I have never used this native SQL till now. But yeah, that is the format like exec and exec, and inside that you can use your select query. So basic OpenSQL commands are the select, insert, update, modify, delete, open cursor, fetch, close cursor. Okay. And in the OpenSQL, what are the performance rule? So basically to improve the performance of the SQL and in turn of the ABAP program, so one should keep the result set small. So wherever we are using the select query, we have to use the where clause, right? And if only one record is required from the database, then we'll have to use select single. Okay, whenever we want to fetch only one record, then in that case, select single is used. Then we have to minimize the amount of the data transferred in case of the OpenSQL. Okay, we have to restrict the number of the lines. If only certain fields are required from a table, then we have to use select field one, field two. So most of the cases you would have seen select star. Select star means it doesn't have any restriction of any number of columns. It will select all the columns from the database table. But if only certain fields are required from a table, then we have to use select field one, field two into your table where clause we have to put it. Right. So, and after that, like if we want to minimize the number of the data transfer in case of the OpenSQL, so we have to avoid the nested select loops. Okay, loop inside loop, we have to avoid that. So from the performance point of view, we should not use select star. We should not use nested loops. Okay, and an alternative option is to use a select for all entries. So we will see what is a select for all entries here. Okay, and this statement select for all entries can be a lot more efficient than performing a large number of select single statements. Okay, so we'll see how that select for all entries are used. Then, in order to minimize the number of the data transfer, one is this avoid nested select loops. Another one is the select for all entries. Another one is dictionary views and joins. Okay, and that is what I have shown you, right? Like these are in our yeah. See, one is like whenever we join the table, we have one is join and another one will be the select for all entries. Okay, this one is the for all entries in ABAP. Then we have to use the views as well, dictionary view. So I have shown you earlier that how we join two tables in a view and see the result set, right? So these are the things. And if we want to minimize the search overhead, then we create the index. Okay, that also I've shown you in one of the class in the ABAP dictionary. And if we want to reduce the database load, then in that case we need to use buffering. Okay, so buffering is the temporary space. If you remember, I showed you in that one as well, buffering types and on the buffering. So you can go and visit the recording of the unit 3 and you can find out those points. So after that, there is also one way to use the internal table to buffer the records. To avoid executing the same select multiple times, an internal table type of hash can also be used to improve the performance. Right. So there are three types of internal tables, as I said. One is the standard internal table and the sorted internal table, where all the fields are sorted, and there is something called as the hashed internal table. Okay. So like we can also use the open select SQL statement select to program the database read access. Okay, and the select statement. So when we come across the select statement contains a series of clauses, each of which has a different task. One is to describe which fields of the table are to read. That means select field 1, field 2, field 3, like that, or select star. Okay. Then there is something called as from clause. From clause names the source from which the data is to be selected. So what we do, select field 1, field 2 into internal table from some table, right? So that from clause names the source from which the data is to be selected, and into clause determines the target variable into which the selected data is to be placed. And again, there is one more condition on which the select query has to be done. So that is the where clause, which specifies the columns of the table that are to be fetched. Okay. So when we want to read any single record, so if you come here, so database read access. So also there are certain thing called as open sequence return codes. So whenever we are selecting any fields from the internal table, we check the size abercy. So after every open SQL statement, the system field size abercy contains the value 0. 0 means the operation is successful. Any other value apart from size abercy, apart from 0, that means it is not a successful operation. Okay. And similarly, we have something called as DB count. It contains the number of the database lines processed. Okay, and this is what I was telling you about the native SQL. Okay, so native SQL will start with exec SQL, and then you write your native SQL statement and end it. So this is the database read access. This is what I was telling, like these fields, which columns, from which table, into where to, and where is the condition. So whenever we are reading the single record, it allows us to read the single record from the database table. And to ensure the unique access, all the key fields must be filled in where clause. And also we use the asterisk symbol to specify all the fields to be read from the DB table. So let's see one example of a select query. We can create a new program for a select query better. It is visible, right?
Yeah, it is.
So what we will do is we will create three parameters, and based on the parameters, we will use a select single star query, and I will show you in the debugger how it fetches only one single record from the table. Right? So we are taking p char id This is one parameters. Con ID and as flight. I think let's see what is that FL date. Okay. So we will declare one variable, a structure type, you can say, as flight type as flight. Okay. So this when you say ls underscore flight, so it is a structure of type this one. Okay. Structure declaration. So here we can use select single. We need to fetch all the records. So I'm just giving select single star from as flight into ls underscore flight. Okay. Where char id will be equals to, so whatever values passed in this parameters, those parameters we need to pass it in the where clause. Okay. And con id equals to p underscore con id. Okay. This. Similarly, FL date equals to, just 1 minute, p underscore FL date. Okay. So now if I have to see then we check the size subversive value equal to 0. Every time any executable statement, whatever we mention here, select query or a read query or a loop, right? So at that time we check this if size subversive value equal to 0. Okay. So we'll write. So in order to display the result, so this ls underscore s flight char id con id full date. Like either you can give all the fields or you can specify some fields which you want to display here. Okay. Planet type. You can see how it looks like, right? So you can go to this as flight and check what all fields are there, right? So these are all the fields. So our structure contains these many fields. So if you want to display any certain fields, so you can give here in the right statement whatever you want to display. Okay. So something like that. Okay. If the size subversive value equal to 0, we will display this. Else, we will just throw a message saying that no records found. This will be of type information. Right. See what happened. S flight. So let me show you in the debugger how it looks like, right? So we'll just put a debugger here, and when I execute it, so before that, what we will do is we'll see in S flight what values are there, right? So based on that, we will give it in the parameter. So char ID, con ID, and FL date. So these are the key fields: char ID, con ID, and FL date. So we'll just sort it and we'll take the latest records. Okay. So this is like UA. For UA, these many records are there. So what I will do as of now, so let's put the debugger here. First, we'll give here or this, let me change the name text element selection text. So here I will just give, you can give the dictionary reference as well. Let's see if it takes it or not. Okay, so it took it, dictionary reference. Since I have used the dictionary reference, so it is directly taking whatever the domain, sorry, the data element of this char ID and con ID and plot FL date. Okay, so if you see this, the char ID is the airline code, con ID is the flight connection number, and the FL date. Okay, so now when I execute it, I give the value, suppose here I'll take it as UA, okay, and then the connection number is 3517, and the flight date is, sorry, flight date is 26/5/2014, right? So there is only one record in this case. Uh, yeah, let's take that one only. Okay. We could give a range also, but as of now, let's take this 26/5/2014. Okay. So when I execute it, so it will go to the select query. Okay. So see this. So our LS flight is of type that structure S flight. S flight is an internal table, but it has taken that structure of the S flight. So when I do this, so what is the value of the PCAR ID? UA, con ID is 3517, FL date is this thing. Okay, 26/5/2014. So let's see if there is any value. So it has a value. So if you see this, the size subversive value equal to 0. So that means there is some value inside this LS flight. So it got populated here. Correct? So now this value, it will display in the right. Okay. So now when I execute it, so it displayed like this. Okay. So this is how the select single works. So this will fetch a single record and in your select query. So this select single star is like all the fields. And if the system finds a suitable record, then the return value of size subversive becomes 0. And then like if suppose for example this ls flight doesn't have all the fields of s flight, then in that case either you can also declare your custom structure like how I showed you last time, right? You can use it via using this type statement and you can declare a custom structure. And in that case what happens is whenever you write select single star from s flight, you have to give here into the corresponding field of S flight. because that has to since it is not similar, that is why you have to give into the corresponding fields of this thing, ls flight. So now this is how we did it. Now if suppose for example if I want to display, there is another way also, I can declare variable of like this type, char id, con id and fl date. And if I want to only display your char id, con id, fl date and price, then how do I do it? So let me show you that as well. So actually, so when I have to display few fields, out of all the fields I want to display few fields. So what I can do is I can either write in this way as well. I declared variables. Okay. Now if suppose I flight price. Okay. So what I can do, I can write here like this: select single char id. There I have written select single star, so that it will fetch all the fields. But here I want to fetch only few fields. Okay. So in that case, I can write in this way: from S flight into. In this case, what I have to do, I have to give all these variables. Right? There, the similar thing, what I will give in here. So now if I want to display it, what I will have to give? So if size numbers equal to 0, here I have to give like lb underscore char id, lb underscore con id, lb fl date and lb price, right? So let me copy that. Instead of this, there is one more way also. Can you tell me what is the other way? To fetch only few fields. Any guesses?
Not sure.
So you can declare a structure, right? You can declare a custom structure. How you will declare? So that is what, like, you have to see. Can you see this? The care ID, con ID, FL date, and the price. So now if I want to do the similar way with the structure, so how do I do that? So I have to declare it in the types begin of, correct? And then I
Right.
have to give a custom structure ty underscore something flight, declare all the care id, con id, fl date, price, type of the data elements. And then I have to declare a structure called as data ls flight, type of that ty underscore flight, correct? And
Right.
that you can use it. Okay. So can you try that and just let me know?
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So now there is something called as select. So this is reads single records, right? So now if I want to use a data retrieval using select loop, you can use a select loop to read several rows of a database table into the program in the succession. Okay, so in this case, the return value should be queried after the end select statement. So how do we use a select end select? Let's see that. Like that means what? It will run, it is kind of a loop where it will just display multiple records in succession. Okay, so now if I want to show you that, select and select loop demo. So what I have to do? So first, let's take something called as airline type of your this table. Okay, so we will take select star from scar into ls airlines. Okay, so I will just put one something called as if size, either I can give size abercy value equal to 0 or I can give some condition as well. Okay, so or since I have not given any where clause here, so better I give a condition here, and based on that the value should be fetched. Like that I will give. Okay, if ls underscore airlines currency code. Okay, so let's see what is the currency code in our system. Let's see what is the currency code. So we have these many currency codes. So we will fetch those records which has the USD. Okay, we have like 3 or 4 records in this case. So I will just give a condition here, saying if it is equals to USD, right? So in that case, you display the car name. Okay, ls underscore airlines car name. And then we will just put end select. So it will run till that much time, like how many records with USD are there, it will run up till that much records. Okay, so if you now, you got my point here, right? It is just a kind of a loop. Okay, it will run until your value
Yeah.
of USD, right? So
I mean, till it fails, right? I mean, till it fails.
sorry,
Till the condition fails.
yes, till the condition fails. Correct. So if I give here, okay, I have to remove this. We don't need this parameters now. This is for the select and select loop demo. So first time it comes here, it is first USD, then it will display your what is the CAN name, American Airlines. Okay. Again it goes to that select query. It will run through all the records, and wherever it finds the USD, it will display it. Okay. So it will not display where euros or any other currency code. So it will run till that much. And let's come out of that loop. So it displayed all this, right? So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we see this, let's give SCARR. Okay, airline currency, I'll give only USD. Let's see what all values are there. So if I just give only car name, so same thing, right?
Fixed values.
American Airline, Continental, Delta, Air Pacific, Northwest Airlines, and United Airlines, right? So this is how your select and select will work. Okay. So now, suppose I told you about the corresponding fields, right? The corresponding fields come into the picture whenever your structure is not completely identical to the table or the structure which we are referring in the select. Okay, so in that case, we will be using your into corresponding fields of your structure. Okay, so we can use the select loop to read several rows, as I showed you. The database delivers the data to the database interface of the application server in packages. Okay, and the specified processing block that copies the records to the target area row by row processing. Okay, the return value should be queried after the select loop, that is after the end select statement. Okay, you can use the into table addition to copy the selected part of the database into an internal table directly instead of doing so by row by row. So instead of this select loop, okay, we have another thing called as internal table concept. Okay, so which is called as this technique is called as an array fetch. Since an array fetch is not a type of a loop processing, so there will be no end select statement. So in that case, what happens is we'll have to use an internal table. Okay, and in case of the internal table also, if it doesn't meet if it is not matching the table or the database table or the structure in the select query, there also we can use the corresponding fields of table. Okay, and with this array fetch, right, if you want to append rows instead also, you can use the appending table addition as well. Okay, so now let's see how to use the instead of select and select statement, how to use into the internal table thing. So whenever we declare an internal table, so you know the structure. So for structure, it is just like this we declare ls underscore airlines type this database table. But if we want to create an internal table, then we have to use type table out. Okay, so this becomes an internal table, this becomes a structure. Okay, or a work area, you can say. So whenever you declare it in a program, so that is called as a work area. Okay, and this is called as an internal table. Clear? So now what we will do is we will use the same thing, but instead of select and select, we will use this way. To table lt underscore airlines lt or it, whatever, like it depends on which project you are and what is the naming convention, okay, which they follow. So I'll give like this. And now what I will do is I will have to use, so now it might have multiple records, correct? In a case of a structure, we have only single record, but in case of the internal table we'll have multiple records. So in order to display row by row, how we will do it? Any idea how to read through the internal table? What we will use is we will have to loop through that internal table. Okay, so this is how we will use the, so for a structure we can directly read that structure, correct? But But for an internal table, since it contains multiple records in the rows, we have to definitely go via row by row, right? So in that case, we use loop at LT Airlines into LSA Airlines. So what it will do, I'll just put this LS underscore airlines, same thing, car name. Okay. So when you practice it, it will be more easy. Okay. So now what happens? It's the same thing what I have done, but instead of select and select, I'm using an internal table to fetch my records. And then I'm displaying the similar way. So now let's activate it. And now if you execute it, see what it will do. So let's go here. Okay. So when I selected only the USD, so how many records it got fetched? 6. Correct? Similar way. And then I'm looping it to display row by row. So if I just execute it, so similar thing. Correct? Just practice it. I mean, it will be getting easier.